The world outside screams all the time. It screams that you need to run faster, achieve more, and shine brighter. It tells you that to truly be someone, your name needs to be up in lights. But Mrs. Helena's world was always different. Her world is made of silence, deep in the heart of the countryside, where the pavement hasn't yet reached. In her world, the red dust of the earth stains the hem of her skirt. Time isn't marked by a digital clock. It's marked by the rooster's crow, long before the sun even shows its face. It's marked by the scent of drip coffee, filtered through cloth, perfuming the dark kitchen. It's marked by the rhythmic sound of the hoe hitting the dry, stubborn soil. Helena spent the last 60 years with her hands plunged into that very soil. They are rough hands, with skin tanned and leathered by the relentless sun. They are hands with nails that never knew the touch of polish, but they know the exact perfect depth needed to plant a tiny seed so it can live. She didn't build corporate empires. She didn't lead teams in air-conditioned boardrooms. She never traveled across the world. The greatest journey Helena ever took was watching her 2 children, whom she carried in her womb and nourished with the sweat of her own brow, pack their bags. She watched them leave for the big city in search of a future the farm simply couldn't provide. They went out to win at life, and Helena stayed behind. Today she sits on her porch of packed earth. As evening falls and the cicadas begin their nightly song, she looks toward the horizon and feels a tightness in her chest that she cannot name. It is an immense, heavy void. It's the painful sensation that life passed too fast. She feels as though she was merely ordinary. She turns on the small old tube TV in the living room and sees those successful women with perfect hair, tailored clothes, talking about their brilliant careers, their prestigious awards, and their many conquests. Helena looks down at her own calloused hands and compares her life to theirs. With deep sadness, she thinks, I failed. I was never the best at anything. I spent my whole life hidden away here, just taking care of the things that nobody ever sees. I know that at some point, maybe even right now, you have felt that same tightness in your chest that Helena feels, that feeling that your work behind the scenes is invisible. The daily, exhausting care for the home, the children, the elderly parents, your family. You feel that none of it is valued by the world. You feel like you are just passing time, serving as a ladder for others to climb, without ever having your own moment to shine. You feel like you don't have a great purpose or a reason to be here. But what Helena doesn't know, and what the world forgets to tell you every single day, is that there are types of success that are far too grand to fit on any trophy. Today, I'm going to tell you how an unexpected event in the big city pulled Helena out of her silence and proved to her and to the world that her reason for being here was much greater. She was much more than she ever imagined. You will discover that in her anonymity, she was the absolute best at what truly sustains life itself. This story will change the way you see your own worth when you look in the mirror and see the tiredness in your eyes. But before I begin this journey, I need you to be brutally honest with me. And most importantly, be honest with yourself. Stop for just a second, take a deep breath, and answer me here in the comments. Have you ever felt that all the effort and care you dedicate to others is invisible? That your own life lacked a great purpose? Write yes or no below. Don't be ashamed of your answer. Let's discover the meaning of this pain. Pay close attention to Mrs. Helena's story, because deep down, it is your story too. Helena always lived in the same small 4-room house where she was born. Her world was bordered by the barbed wire fence that separated her yard from the neighbor's pasture, and by the red dirt road that led away to the outside world. The rhythm of her life was never dictated by the news or the rush of the city, but by the seasons of the year. The time to prepare the earth, the time to plant the seed, the time to wait for the rain with a rosary in her hand, and the time for the harvest. She married young, as was the custom, to a good man of few words and much work, Together on that small piece of ground, they raised 2 children. And the routine, oh, the routine was heavy. It was a daily struggle that began long before the sun showed its face. Helena was always the first to wake. She would light the wood stove, feeling the smell of the smoke that clung to her clothes and her hair every day. While the coffee water boiled, she was already in the yard feeding the chickens, tending to the vegetable garden that guaranteed their lunch, and milking the cow. Her day was a marathon without a podium. It was scrubbing heavy work clothes in the cement tub until her knuckles ached and her back cried out in protest. It was keeping the house clean against the stubborn dust that blew through the cracks in the windows. It was cooking, serving, washing dishes, and starting all over again for dinner. It was mending work pants, sewing on buttons, and ensuring that nothing was ever missing for anyone else. Helena's work never truly ended. And the worst part was, it was rarely ever noticed. It was the thankless kind of work that people only notice when it stops being done. If the clothes were clean and folded, no one said a word. But if a single ironed shirt was missing, the world seemed to end. She was the invisible foundation of that home, sustaining everything in silence. The years flew by, marked only by the wrinkles appearing in the mirror and the calluses that hardened her hands. Her husband, the companion of her entire life, passed away on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Her children grew up, studied through their parents' immense sacrifice, and went to find their own lives in the big city. They moved far away from the dust and the smell of the farm, and Helena stayed. The house that was once full of noise, children's laughter, and dinner conversations was taken over by a profound silence, a silence that sometimes made her ears ache. It was broken only by the wind in the trees and the static of her old radio. Helena left the radio on in the kitchen just to feel like there was someone else in the world. It was in this silence, now that she had fewer mouths to feed and fewer clothes to wash, that doubt began to sprout in her heart. She finally had time to think, and when she looked back at her own history, she didn't see great achievements. She didn't see anything the world would call success. She saw only decades of manual labor and quiet care that seemed to have evaporated into thin air. She looked at her rough hands, stained by earth and soap, and felt ashamed of them. "What did I do with my life?" she would ask herself on those lonely afternoons. "I just cared. I cared for the house. I cared for the children. I cared for my husband until the very end. And now that no one needs me anymore, what is left? Who am I?" She felt small, almost non-existent, as if her entire life had been nothing more than a footnote in the history of other people. The only place where Helena still felt truly alive, where she felt her hands still had some purpose, was in her garden. It wasn't an ordinary garden from a magazine. It was a generous piece of land at the back of the yard that she had reclaimed from the weeds over the years. There the earth seemed to understand Helena. Wherever she touched, life sprouted with an impressive, silent force. She cultivated flowers that no one else in the region could make thrive. She had heirloom rose bushes with roses of a red so deep they looked like velvet, and a perfume that intoxicated anyone who walked near. She had delicate orchids hanging from the trees. She would mist them with fresh water every morning, as if she were bathing a newborn baby. She had flowering shrubs that she pruned with a care and precision that was almost surgical. To the rest of the world, Helena was a woman of few words. But there, among the plants, she talked. She truly talked. She would stroke the petals and tell them her anxieties. She asked the wind for advice and poured out the loneliness that suffocated her inside the house. "At least you need me," she would whisper to the giant dahlias. "If I don't come here to water you, you will die." The garden was her sanctuary and her only pride. It was the only place where she felt her touch made the difference between life and death, between beauty and neglect. But deep down, in the most hidden corner of her heart, she thought it was too little. What value does this have? She would think. Growing a garden in the middle of nowhere is just a lonely old woman's hobby. She saw her passion as a mere consolation, not as a divine gift. The change she didn't even know she needed began on a Tuesday afternoon with an unexpected phone call. The black rotary phone in the hallway, which almost never rang, suddenly screamed. Helena ran, wiping her hands on her apron, her heart racing. Who could it be? It was her youngest daughter, Clara. Clara, the girl who was always studious, who left home early for college and was now a respected doctor in the capital, full of commitments and responsibilities Helena couldn't even imagine. Clara's voice on the other end of the line sounded different. It was choked up, trembling with emotion, almost on the verge of tears. "Mum, it's Clara. Are you sitting down?" Helena felt her legs weaken and she pulled out a chair. "I am, my daughter. Did something happen? Are you all right?" A mother's instinct, always on alert, was already imagining the very worst. Clara laughed, a nervous and happy laugh at the same time. "No, Mom, everything is fine. It's just that something incredible happened. I won an award, a very important award from the hospital and the medical association. It's recognition for my hard work over the last few years." Helena sighed in deep relief. A shy smile appeared on her face. "Thank God, my daughter. I am so proud of you. You deserve every good thing." But Clara continued, her voice becoming more serious. "But Mom, that's not all. There's going to be an awards ceremony, a big gala at a fancy hotel here in the city with many important people. Directors, other doctors, and Mom, you need to come. I cannot receive this award without you there." Helena's smile froze. Her heart, which had been relieved, was now gripped by cold panic. Travel to the big city. Her? A woman who barely ever left her own small farm. "Me, my daughter?" Helena stammered. "But what would I do there?" "I don't have clothes for that, Clara. I'm from the countryside. I'll embarrass you among those fancy people. I don't even know how to behave in a place like that." The idea of being in a luxury hotel surrounded by doctors terrified her more than any snake she had ever encountered in the brush. Clara was firm but affectionate. "Mom, please don't talk like that. You're the most important person in my life. It's the most important night of my career. And it won't make any sense if you aren't there holding my hand. I've already bought your bus ticket. It's for this Friday. I won't take no for an answer." Without a way to deny such a heartfelt request from her daughter, and with her heart tight with fear and a love that overcame any insecurity, Helena gave in. In the following days, she lived in a mix of anxiety and preparation. She took her small leather suitcase out from the bottom of the trunk. She separated her best clothes, which were still very simple, a floral print dress for the trip and her church dress, a navy blue skirt and blouse, set she only used for very special occasions, like weddings or baptisms. She washed it and pressed it with a coal iron, trying to make everything look impeccable. On Friday at dawn, she said goodbye to her house. She entrusted her plants to the neighbor and caught the bus by the side of the road. The trip was long, 6 hours of bumps and landscapes that slowly changed from the green of the woods to the grey of asphalt and tall buildings. Helena's heart was in her throat. She felt small, like a fish out of water, being carried by the current toward an unknown sea. Arriving at the capital's bus station was a total shock. The noise, the amount of people rushing around, the glowing signs, it all made Helena dizzy. When she saw Clara waving in the crowd, she felt immense relief. It was as if she had found a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. Clara looked beautiful, dressed in modern clothes and talking on her cell phone, appearing to belong perfectly to that fast-paced world. She hugged her mother tightly and took her to the hotel where the ceremony would take place. The hotel was a palace in Helena's eyes. The marble floor shone so much that she was afraid of slipping. There were giant crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and elegant people passing back and forth, wearing perfumes Helena had never smelled before. In the hotel room, she felt herself shrink even more. Clara helped her get ready, praising her navy blue dress and trying to make her feel at ease. But Helena looked into the giant mirror and only saw an old country woman with rough hands and a sun-marked face, completely out of place in that luxury setting. "I shouldn't have come," she thought as they walked to the gala. "I'm only going to get in my daughter's way." The ballroom was packed, round tables with white cloths, silver cutlery Helena didn't even know how to use, and waiters passing by with trays of food she had never seen. Helena sat in the front row where Clara indicated and tried to make herself invisible. She crossed her hands in her lap, hiding her calluses, and stared at the illuminated stage. She watched Clara talking to other doctors, laughing so confidently, and felt immense pride mixed with that old sense of inferiority. How could someone so important come from me, she wondered. I'm so small compared to her. The ceremony began. Speeches were made, applause echoed, and important names were called to the stage. Helena watched it all like a movie in another language, just waiting for her daughter's moment. Finally, the MC announced, "And now, for the Physician of the Year Award in Humanized Medicine, Dr. Clara Mendes." Helena felt her heart leap. She saw her daughter walk up the steps with elegance, her long dress shimmering under the lights. Clara received the heavy trophy, a piece of glass and metal that glowed brightly. She smiled for the photographers and stood before the microphone. The room fell into a deep silence. All eyes were on Clara. Helena held her breath, squeezing her own hands in her lap. Clara took a deep breath, looked at the trophy, and then raised her eyes to the audience. Her gaze swept the room until it found her mother's face in the front row. Helena tried to smile, but she was petrified. "Good evening, everyone." Clara's voice echoed firmly. "I am immensely honored by this recognition. I thank my colleagues, my mentors, and the hospital team. But I need to be honest with you." She paused, and the silence in the ballroom seemed to grow even deeper. "I didn't get here alone, and the most important person in my journey isn't found in the medical books I read, nor in the operating rooms where I learned to perform surgery." Clara looked fixedly at Helena. "The person who taught me everything that truly matters about being a doctor is sitting right there." Suddenly, a spotlight swung and focused directly on Helena. The bright light blinded her for a second. She felt her face burn with shame and wanted to hide under the table, but she couldn't look away from her daughter. "I want to introduce you to my mother, Mrs. Helena," Clara continued, her voice trembling. "My mother never set foot in a university. She never wore a white coat. She spent her entire life in the countryside with her hands in the dirt, tending to our farm and our family." Helena felt hot, uncontrollable tears begin to well up. She felt the weight of 60 years of labor suddenly being acknowledged. Many might look at her life and think it was simple, without great deeds, but I am here to tell you that is a lie. It was in that simple backyard, watching my mother tend her garden, that I learned the most valuable lessons of my life. Clara held the trophy tighter, as if it were only a symbol of what she was saying. "My mother taught me that for something to flourish, you need infinite patience. You need to water it every day, even when the earth looks dry and the seed shows no sign of life. She taught me that you need the courage to prune what is bad to make room for the new to grow. She taught me that true care cannot be rushed, and that there is no fertilizer more powerful than quiet, dedicated love." Helena's tears were now flowing freely down her face. "Mom," Clara said, speaking directly to her, "you always thought you were just taking care of plants. You felt small because your work didn't appear in the news. But you were wrong. You weren't just growing flowers, you were growing us. You pruned our fears when we were children. You watered our dreams with unconditional support. Your garden, Mom, was never just roses and orchids. Your garden was always people." Clara raised the trophy toward her mother. "And if I am here today saving lives, it's because you taught me the sacred value of life in that little piece of dirt. You were the best at what the world rarely applauds, But what is the most important of all? To love and to nourish. This award isn't mine, Mom. It's ours. It's yours. The entire ballroom was silent for a heartbeat. Then one person began to clap, then another and another. Within seconds, hundreds of doctors and executives were on their feet, giving a thunderous standing ovation. They weren't clapping for the doctor on stage. They were turned toward the small woman in the front row. They were applauding the lady from the countryside, with her navy blue dress and calloused hands, who was crying copiously, covering her face with the hands she had tried so hard to hide. That night, in the luxury hotel room, Helena couldn't sleep. But it was an insomnia full of peace. She went to the marble bathroom and looked at her reflection. She saw the same wrinkles and white hair, but there was a new serenity in her eyes. She looked at her hands, raised them, and examined them as if for the first time. She saw the calluses and the stains of earth, but she felt no shame. She felt a profound respect for those hands. She understood that they were the hands that built the solid foundation for her children to fly. She was the gardener of life. The next day, Helena took the bus back home. Her simple house was no longer a void, it was a sanctuary of peace. She knelt in her garden and smiled. She knew now that she wasn't just planting flowers, she was exercising her sacred gift. Helena's story is the story of every woman who has doubted her own worth. Your garden might be your family, your children, or the team you support behind the scenes. The world might not give you a trophy every day, but never doubt that you are here for a reason. Being the best is about delivering your love and essence in whatever you are called to do. Honor your invisible work. Honor your garden, because without your care, the world does not flourish. If this story touched your heart, leave a like. Comment below, I honor my garden, to affirm this commitment to yourself. Share this with a sister who needs to remember her irreplaceable value. You are necessary. You are important. Thank you for watching. Until next time.